Be joined by four panelists addressing the amazing of cannabis for health and wellness, and into the value of beauty products and a whole range of wellness from minor stress reduction effects all the way to actually curing cancer. So we're going to hear from Christina DeGiovanni, sorry, Christina, who is the publisher of Emerald Magazine, is going to moderate the panel. And so here we go. Christina, hi.
Hello, how are you doing?
Really good. We've had a wonderful day of panels and music, and we're delighted to have you all join us. I'll let you go ahead and introduce our panelists and take it away.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here and to be celebrating this festival with you guys. And
Christina, hi.
Hello, how are you? Hi everyone. How are you doing? Hi Tim, how are you? All right, we're working right now. We're getting everyone online. We're getting the audio online. Hopefully you guys can hear me. I am Christina from Emerald Media Group. I am moderating a panel today on health, wellness, and beauty for the cannabis industry. I'm going to be speaking with some great leaders in the industry today. Andrea Brooks from Sava, which is an online dispensary. I'm going to be speaking with Tim Blake. He's the founder of the Emerald Cup. He's up in Mendocino in the Emerald Triangle. He's got a dispensary under his belt. We're also going to be speaking to Jess Dugan of Ganja Yoga. And so we've got a great line of panelists lined up this afternoon. And I'm grateful for everyone to be joining us today. Awesome. All right. Well, while we're working to get all the audio on, I hope everyone can hear me. Tim, I can see you directly, so I hope you're doing very well over there. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can hear you all right. You're back in New York still, huh?
I'm in Brooklyn, man. We are living it. We are living the dream out here. It's almost 9 o'clock, but it's still very light out. So, you know, we're doing it, you know, all the way through. We're almost in stage 2 or phase 2, I'll say, of reopening. So we're still working our way through and still in quarantine, but still, you know, still doing it. So
people are ready. I just heard MJ Biz announced a full show for Vegas in December.
Really?
So they're just going to plan on, oh yeah, completely opened up, no restrictions at all. So they're moving right into it. And then my friend just opened a dispensary in Tahoe, and he said for 3 weeks, it's been business as usual, no masks, everybody just going for it. Everything's sold out. And he said there's been no uptick and not one death.
Hey, that's great to hear. You know, I mean, we have to proceed with caution everywhere, but the reality is that we've got to get back to normal. We've got to move our society back to normal. This is not, this doesn't work the way that it is right now. It doesn't work for entrepreneurs. It doesn't work for any industry. It doesn't work for the individual consumer. So, you know, slowly but surely we're working our way back into, you know, a sense of normalcy. And so that's good to hear that there are businesses out there that are working towards getting back to what normal, quote unquote, actually is.
As I do want to say, as someone who has had friends extremely sick up in the Tahoe area, I do hope that all places are using masks and all businesses are requiring their staff. I personally don't go out without a mask, but just wanted to, I think it's good that things are opening up, but when I hear of places not using masks after having friends been so incredibly sick, that hurts me.
Yeah, that's understandable. I mean, I myself here in New York City I was sick for about 2 weeks, had about a 2-week recovery. So was down for 4 weeks in total. So it's no joke. It's a real thing. But, you know, as a society and as a community, you know, it's hard. It's hard. You know, you can either go one way or the other, but it's challenging no matter how you look at it.
Look, I'm one of those at-risk people because I understand I have COPD and I'm older, so I would be an at-risk person. And I really do appreciate this is a real illness and whatnot, and it does kill people. But at some point, you have to isolate those people and take the other 95% that are asymptomatic or don't get much effect at all and let society go on. We've never shut down, other than the 1918, we've never shut down society. And at some point, you know, there's tens of millions of people that are dealing with depression, suicidal thoughts, you know, poverty, you know, homelessness coming on middle-class families. And it's like, wow, you've got to go at it. I can say that he said that there are no masks in Tahoe and that it's been going on for 3 weeks and there hasn't been any uptick and not one death. So,
yeah, you know, it's certainly a different scenario for every place. I mean, coming out from New York City, you know, we have the lowest transmission rate, but we did have, you know, the highest rate of COVID victims. So it's all about navigating those waters, looking at the science, looking at the data, and really just, you know, assessing our local community and what we can take on and what we can't take on. And, you know, really asking ourselves, like, how we can move forward with the pandemic. Is there going to be a second wave? How can we really, you know, move forward? But I think that that's actually, COVID is a great segue to, you know, the conversation that we want to have today, which is about all the beneficial, you know, health and wellness benefits of cannabis. I've heard some crazy, you know, not accusations, but CBD can help combat COVID. I don't think there's any scientific proof to that. That is out there, you know, floating around. And so I would love to start the conversation off by asking each of you, you know, how has COVID impacted your business, and what is your business going to do moving forward? And Tim, I would love to start with you, and then, you know, we can, Andrea, we'd love to go with you next, and then Jess, if you're on the line, I'd love to hear from you as well. So Tim, tell us, how has COVID impacted your company personally? Sorry, not personally, but how has COVID impacted you guys, and what are you going to do moving forward as we come out of quarantine?
Well, on the event side, we're the last to open up, of course. You got restaurants and whatnot. Then you got live events, of course, people coming together. We're following Vegas. We're following what's happening with the sports and the other entertainment industries. Of course, we'd like to open it up. But, you know, like we're talking about, you've got to be cautious. You got to go about it right. But, of course, with the Emerald Cup, shutting down events and the whole event industry, you're talking about absolute devastation and destruction. And, of course, we can't just open it up arbitrarily. But watching Vegas open up and watching Tahoe open up, we're cautiously optimistic. The thing that we see is that all the studies I've done is that you take in New York, most of the deaths were from nursing homes and from older people in rest homes and nursing homes that shouldn't have been put in there. So if you look at the traditional population, it's not that great, but it has had a great impact on the Emerald Cup event. For us as a dispensary and for our products, not so much, because cannabis is moving really well through the networks throughout California. So that's interesting that it really hasn't. And of course, farmers are still working. But on the event side, we're lucky that we backed the event up for the Emerald Cup this year to March of 2021, because thinking of going in this year would have been tough.
Okay. Andrea, I'd love to hear, how has COVID impacted Sava, and what are you guys going to do moving forward into this next you know, reopening phase?
Yeah, you know, I think being in the cannabis industry, especially if you've been in it for years, I've been in it for a little over 5 years now, which is, you know, nothing compared to others, but it definitely makes you resourceful. It makes you resilient, and you have to be agile and constantly ready to turn on a dime. So when COVID happened, delivery in general spiked. So we had that as well. But again, we had to transition all of our operations extremely fast, which is like the methodology of like both how we work in our depot and adjusting how we get the product to the consumer. So we made sure to be as ahead of it as possible and put really strict protocols in place, which we're still following. So really for us, it's, I think throughout the rest of the year, we'll be keeping with our very strict protocols. You know, everyone wears masks, our warehouse, there's social distance space. So making sure that we're just keeping abreast of the situation and keeping best practices in place.
Right. And keeping each other safe and making sure all the products are as safe as possible from any sort of contamination, and what that might. I know there's been talk about, can COVID live through the mail? Does it survive on surfaces? And so I can imagine that's something that your company has been dealing with or asking themselves about this entire time.
Yeah. There's a lot of teaching going on all the time. So we just, again, being that there's a lot of unknown information, we still, for now, we're going to just be as conservative as possible. But we, generally, it hasn't slowed down business, but it's an adjustment on our end to keep our community safe.
Well, it's interesting that you would mention, business and whether it slows down or speeds up, because if anyone's been watching the trends in the industry, we've seen that there's been a significant uptick in sales. I mean, edibles have increased by 30%, predominantly by women that are purchasing this product. They're saying that sales across the industry have increased by 65% due to, online sales and shopping. The new norm is almost to purchase online and then drop pickup. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that this is going to be the new industry standard norm, or is the bud tender phasing out? What are your thoughts, Tim?
Well, it's interesting, when they didn't allow the lounges to come in originally, so that people didn't really have the experience, so they had to go pick up their product and then leave immediately. It became easier to do, delivery because they weren't getting the experience in the dispensary anyway. We always had a dab bar at Area 101, so it was different for us. We just rebelled. But because people have gotten used to that, I think it's going to be harder and harder because people have gotten used to home delivery and they like it. It comes to your door. You don't have to do it. And you don't get the experience of what do you really do when you go to a dispensary? You have to go in, get your stuff, and in most cases leave. And so nobody gets the real, experiential ability to sit down and be in a lounge anyway. So I think it is going to be the future. And I never thought I would do so much online ordering myself. I'm not one of those people. I support small companies and small businesses, but being shut in, I've done it. And I've got to say, it is pretty easy to just order things and have it show up. I mean, I think, oh gosh, this could become really, the way to go. I still believe in small businesses and bud tenders and teaching and education. So I'd like to see it continue the way it is. And I hope that they really open up the whole lounge process and the interaction with dispensaries so that it can be much more interactive and, enjoyable.
Yeah, absolutely. Andrea, what do you think about this? I mean, you've been operating in the digital space, for a while now. I mean, now that the consumer landscape is changing, what are your thoughts on the industry going forward in regards to consumer habits or sales?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of small I bootstrapped this company. We're like small, female founded, and we've been online based this whole time. Kind of, again, the reason we focused on that is a bit of my background. I was disabled before I started using cannabis, and I required delivery. So I always had an eye on that trend, and that's what my interest was, based on my personal experience. I think the move to online and delivery is going to continue to happen, but I do think, going back to some of what Tim mentioned, people do need social contact. They do need social interaction. So I think there's always going to be a place for brick and mortars in a general sense. How things bounce back this year based on the economy is tricky. Like I definitely see these purchasing trends continuing, and then people get into a new routine and they stay there. A lot of people don't like change, but I do think there's a place for the bud tenders. There's a place for all of these different experiences. So I hope it, balances out a little bit next year. And then I hope there's, a lot of support for, generally speaking, small businesses of how to take advantage of online ordering and things like that. So it seems that there's been a lot of cooperation in the community in terms of like different businesses helping each other out and sharing tools so that we can remain and can't be helping people with all these things that we're, beauty and health and all these things if we're not all here together and coming together as a community.
Absolutely. And Jess, Dugan, are you on the line with us?
Yes, I am here.
Oh, excellent.
Oh, yeah.
Hi, everyone.
Jess Dugan from Ganja Yoga. Thank you so much for joining us today. I would love to hear your thoughts on the new consumer landscape. You know, doing yoga, it's a personal experience for people, you know, going from one pose to another, just really become interconnecting with yourself. So, you know, now that the industry is kind of shifting, what do you think about, you know, the bud tender's position in our industry and the unfortunate thought of it getting phased out? How will consumers know what products to pursue if there's no middleman there to really educate them on what their options are or what the industry has going for them? What are your thoughts there?
Unfortunately, I think there's actually a lack of education amongst the bud tenders themselves, and the amount of bud tenders that actually know how to speak and address particularly patients who are seeking out a particular medicine to address whatever it is they have is limited. And so I think that although it is removing a personal connection that is really important to our mental health, it is giving consumers an opportunity to better understand what medicines they need. And I think through this challenge, there's an opportunity to create a new innovative way of educating people. And I think one of the biggest challenge in the consumer world is education. And so while it's challenging to lose that one-on-one connection, and we're seeing a lot of unemployment for people, it's a great opportunity for consumers to really get the power in their own hands to really know what they're doing and how to do it in a good way.
Right. I agree with you. There's so much more need for education out there on just everything from different strains to terpene profiles, products that are on the market. And we really need someone with experience to help guide consumers through that process. And so, you know, we don't have much time. We've got maybe like roughly 10 minutes left, but I really do want to jump into what is facing, you know, America today and our world today with inequality, and how, you know, cannabis and the war on drugs historically has, you know, disproportionately marginalized minority communities. And I want to know what you know, everyone is doing out there to help you know, overcome this inequality. And I would love to start maybe with Tim and maybe talk about how, you know, your dispensary or how the Emerald Cup is really just working towards recognizing, you know, minorities and communities that have been underserved in cannabis, on the war on drugs, and what we are actively doing within our positions to help shed light in very important areas.
You know, I've always been somebody who's, boy, I have Hispanic family members throughout my family. I have Afro-American son-in-laws and grandkids. I have a you know, a Filipino girlfriend. I mean, my whole life is basically very integrated across the board. So with the Emerald Cup, we've never thought of like that. It's just like whoever's best, whatever we can get for the positions, we try to really balance that out. My brother-in-law was captain of Watsonville PD, and he's gone through some serious cancer issues. And now he's really teaching the Hispanic community about cannabis. And so I really wanted to bring him into the cup this year and start bringing that in there. I got an uncle who's a 90-year-old Catholic priest. You know, they're their own minority, and we're having him teach people about what that is. So it's really bringing that in. It's unfortunate the old outlaws like us got put up into the mountains up here, and it was really kind of a you know, for the most part, white people up here in these mountains hiding out growing cannabis all these years, and there wasn't even very many females involved. So the first thing with us was really bringing the female presence in as much as I could to balance that too across the board. My daughter Taylor's in there. In fact, we probably have more women working on the cup than we do men.
Excellent. Amazing.
You can always, well, I've always felt like, you know, cannabis should be balanced. And the only reason why there wasn't more females involved was because of the dangers. It wasn't because of the lack of abilities as farmers or, you know, educators or, you know, any other abilities. It was just that. Now that we're seeing that come in here, women are taking their rightful place. And I'm really, really honored with that. I do think we got to work harder for the other minorities to come in, and the Cup's talked about that. And really, with us talking about moving to LA, we really talked about how we can go out and really, really make that a major part of our message. But we've always worked very hard to bring in as much of a balance as we could. So I feel like we've always really been on the forefront of that.
Excellent. That's really good to hear. You know, now and at all times, it's great to just bring in people of all different backgrounds, men, women, and it's really, you know, enlightening to see companies that are leading the space and setting that example. Andrea, I'd love to hear from you and how Sava is be inclusive and to, you know, shed light on communities that need support right now. What are you guys doing over there?
Yeah, well, I think maybe just kind of bringing it into the current moment and the Black Lives Matter moment, you know, with, you know, in the aftermath of the killing of George Floyd, we took a step back to really think, and what do we need to continue to adjust? That's not just like a performative action. Like, what do we really need to look at with ourselves, and who are we as a company? And for those that don't know me or what we're about, so Sava has 3 female founders. 2 of us are gay. I'm one of the 2. One is Latina, and of the 3 of us, it's been a big focus of our company to make sure that at least 50% of the brands on our platform are women owned. So we've focused a lot on gender equity. We're pushing ourselves to go beyond that. So things that we've made commitments to the community is making sure there's more expansive shelf equity for Black owned brands, doing anti-racism training for all of our staff, because no matter who we are, we believe, you know, there's more to learn and more to be aware of constantly. And then also making sure that we're consistently giving back to organizations that are working on expungement and especially nonprofits that are also BIPOC led that are working on that fight. So constantly examining what we're doing, and then just kind of wanted to harken back to something that Jess said around the education of cannabis. I just wanted to tie it together a little bit is, you know, when we're talking about, you know, health and wellness, I do think that education piece is really important. So we commit to doing a lot of ongoing training for our staff. And I think that's just in general, for the consumer, I would encourage any consumer, no matter where they're located, to, you know, try to understand what either a brick and mortar or online dispensary is doing to educate their staff in a variety of ways. It's, you know, if we're focusing on newer consumers, it's not usually just one touch point that can get someone to try cannabis. They might need multiple places of entry. And I think, you know, bringing it back to the events that Tim does, and also Jess, and reaching out and like getting into the wellness sphere, it's a lot of that one-on-one interaction that helps bring people in. And I know Jess does that a lot with her practice.
Yeah.
Going there.
Jess, we'd love to hear from you and how, you know, you're working to incorporate equality within your practice. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, you know, I've really been taking a look inwards and working at a micro level with myself and allowing myself to be very uncomfortable admitting some hard truths. And I think that one of the most challenging feelings as a human is shame. And in order to make progress in this movement, a lot of people have to take accountability in places where they might have chose normalcy or ignorance is bliss instead of facing the truth. And because we are so avoidant to actually tap into shame, we aren't willing to be accountable, I think, in general as a society. So there's a lot of tough conversations that are happening all over the world right now. And the conversations really need to start intimately with ourselves. And for me, this process has really been about, okay, where does inequality exist within me? And where does the inequality exist within the relationship with myself? How am I doing wrong to me? And how does that ripple out to those around me? There's a thing called limbic resonance, and it's the way we experience our emotions internally is experienced by the loved ones around us. And this can be a relationship with our parents, it can be a romantic relationship, it can be with our employees and our customers, right? So I really think there's a ripple effect that comes out and spreads wide, and it starts right here with ourselves. And so that's the work that I've been doing, and it's been very intimate and deep and uncomfortable, and I'm willing to get uncomfortable because that's what's needed right now.
I think that
Yeah,
is
great.
so honest and insightful, and I appreciate that. And this is an uncomfortable conversation for many of us in the United States and around the world right now. And like you said, shame is a hard emotion to accept and digest. And those of us that have in the past truly believed that they felt shame, it doesn't leave, it sticks with them. And it's about internalizing those feelings and how can we apply that and educate ourselves going forward. And so I really appreciate you bringing that conversation. One thing that I'd like to leave the audience with, and we'll start with you, Jess, is what can we do from this moment going forward in our society and what's going on, the Black Lives Matter movement and the fight for equality and social justice? If you had to leave our audience with one tip, what would it be to further better ourselves, society around us? What are your thoughts?
That's a big question.
I know. Sum it up in a couple words.
As a yoga teacher and a movement enthusiast, one of the most helpful things for me has been coming into my body. And so if we can be in our bodies, we get to operate with a second set of wisdom. We're not just operating from our head, we're operating from our hearts too. And I think too many people in our world are operating just from the head. So we are more powerful when we are the bridge between the head and the heart, and we're operating from that interface. And so I think that would be my advice. And one of the best pathways to get into the body is through the breath. So a deep breath in and a deep breath out. And if you really want to work it, making sure your exhale's a little bit longer than your inhale. Yeah.
I love it. Andrea, what would you leave our audience with if you had to put something out there?
I just love what Jess said. I just took a big deep breath myself. That's something I've been trying to remember to do as someone who
working already.
I'm always in my head. So I just love what Jess said. And then I guess, God, again, it's a big question, but dealing with, along the lines of shame, also dealing with our fear of change, and that, I don't know. I feel like that's kind of been my personal thing is, sometimes I don't want to say the wrong thing and I might hold back, and, we have to be afraid to make mistakes and keep moving forward and keep our voices out there while we're balancing by being in our bodies.
Right. So just being vocal and being present and put yourself out there, even if it may not be 100% the correct, but really just being active in the moment and putting yourself out there and being open to feedback. I think that's fear is, oh no, I'm saying the wrong thing. Are they gonna not like me? Am I on the outs now? And really just the fact that you take that step ahead and put yourself out there really does speak volumes in the movement. So I love what both of you have said. Tim, I would love to hear what your thoughts are on leaving the office with, an action step to move forward.
I love what Jess was talking about. I've been meditating for 47 years. I think it's about education, and it's about really coming together as a society and realizing that we have not made ourselves a thriving society through our diet, through the drugs that we take in, through the pressure from the low income pay that we've got, the inequalities. All of it has put so much pressure on everybody. The middle class is gone, and we have this very much divided. We're really, the way to get this is to have the French Revolution and go in there and really start over, because we need to rebalance our whole society. Because as long as there's so much pressure on individuals, there's too much coming at everybody, and it just has to spill out. And that's why you see all this with the protests and everything else. There's just angst all over the place. So we need to get back to being a thriving society. And to really do that, we're going to have some serious conversations about education and whatnot. But I look at the meditation, the breathing, the better food, all the things that we need to do to make people healthier so that we can actually be more at peace, because it starts with the inner peace. And there's very little inner peace in our society. I mean, third world countries around the world are much more peaceful internally than we are. we've been really put through the ringer, especially in this country. And it's got to change because you can't tax people that much emotionally, physically, spiritually, or whatnot.
Right.
can't do it.
Something has got to change. And I agree. And I love what everyone has brought to the conversation. And I thank everyone for being here with us, and for all the viewers out there for tuning in. Thank you so much for your wisdom. Thank you so much for being a part of this. I think we're all towards the same direction, and we all have the same common goal. And so I thank you all for being a part of this. And I look forward to seeing you again on this journey down the road, as we all continue to travel the path. So thank you all so much. And Michael Ghazni, I'm going to turn the mic back over to you, and thank you for having all of us.
Yes, Christina. Wow. Thank you so much, you guys. How deep, how beautiful. I don't have anything else to say. So,
Thank you.
by the way, there's well over 20,000 viewers for our Medicine Wheel program today going on. And I'm sure there'll be many people watching the replay of it. So thanks for your vital contributions to this transmission, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.